Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India NewsHour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour. Belgium arrests fugitive Indian businessman Mehul Choksi for alleged bank fraud, confirms working on India's extradition request. Prime Minister Narendra Modi unveils development projects in the northern Indian state of Haryana. Trump calls Russian strike on Ukraine's Sumy horrible and a mistake. Moscow insists that it hit military targets. EU Foreign Policy Chief says the bloc is working on a 17th package of sanctions against Russia. And investors welcome Trump's move to exempt smartphones and computers from tariffs. Nasdaq leads Wall Street higher, European and Asian markets too in green. Fugitive Indian businessman Mehul Choksi has been arrested in Belgium. Belgium was acting on India's extradition request. Choksi is wanted in India for a bank fraud. His arrest comes weeks after media reports confirm that Choksi is living in the city of Antwerp along with his wife after obtaining residency there. Syed Absarul Hassan reports.
Bank defaulter and fugitive businessman Mehul Choksi has been arrested in Belgium on India's extradition request for his role in a public sector bank loan fraud case. The Indian government had sent the extradition request before his arrest. India's Union Minister of State for Finance, Pankaj Chaudhary, called the arrest a significant achievement in the investigation into those who stole money from the poor.
मोदी जी ने जो पहले ही कहा कि गरीबों का पैसा जिन जिन लोगों ने खाया है उसको वापस करना होगा और देश में सभी के खिलाफ कार्रवाई चल रहा है। मेहुल चोक्सी पकड़ा गया है, निश्चित तौर से बहुत बड़ी सफलता।
The 65-year-old fugitive diamond merchant left India on 2nd January 2018. Mehul Choksi is wanted by the Central Bureau of Investigation (CBI) and the India's money laundering watchdog Enforcement Directorate or ED for defrauding the Punjab National Bank or PNB of 13,850 crore rupees. His nephew Nirav Modi was also involved with the fraud revealed in January 2018. Choksi has allegedly obtained fraudulent letters of undertaking from PNB and accessed credit facilities without collateral. Choksi fled India in 2018 and took refuge in Antigua after acquiring citizenship in 2017. In March 2023, Interpol revoked the red notice against Choksi, following which he relocated to Belgium in 2024. 2 weeks ago, Choksi obtained an F residency card in Belgium. Choksi was arrested in Belgium on April 12 on the request of CBI. Choksi's nephew, Nirav Modi, well-known designer jeweler, was also arrested in London in May 2019. He has exhausted all legal avenues to evade extradition and is currently serving jail in UK. January 2018, Choksi fled to Antigua and Barbuda after being accessed in the PNB scam. March 2019, the extradition process against Choksi began in Antigua. July 2019, the Enforcement Directorate attached Choksi's assets in India and abroad. May 2021, Choksi went missing from Antigua, later found in Dominica. May 2021, Choksi was arrested in Dominica for illegally entering by boat. May 2021, Choksi's whereabouts in Antigua were unclear, conflicting arguments about his potential extradition to India. The Antiguan government argued he could be extradited due to a wrongful departure. June 2021, India sent a private jet to retrieve Choksis from Dominica, but the extradition process was delayed. April 2025, finally, Choksi was arrested in Belgium and India has requested his extradition. Mehul Choksi's arrest in Belgium marks a significant step in the pursuit of justice for his involvement in over 13,000 crore rupees PNB fraud. With India's extradition request underway, this development follows a year-long legal saga, including Choksi's flight to Antigua and his subsequent disappearance and arrest in Dominica. Syed Afsarul Hassan reporting for DD India.
The war in Ukraine shows no signs of slowing down as Russia steps up its assault on Ukraine's cities. In the latest wave of attacks, civilians have once again borne the brunt. Here's a wrap on the latest developments.
There seems to be no end in sight to the over 3-year-long Russia-Ukraine war. On Monday, a Russian strike on Ukraine's Kharkiv region killed 4 residents just a day after a deadly attack in neighboring Sumy claimed 38 lives. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has demanded a strong international response, calling out Moscow for targeting civilians.
Суми. Станом на цей час відомо про
I would like to thank every one of you who remembers that wars end only when the crimes of war are not forgotten and when there is sufficient pressure on the aggressor. This is exactly what we currently don't have.
The Kremlin, however, insists its strikes were only aimed at military targets.
В данном случае это
I can only repeat and remind you of the repeated statements of both our president and our military representatives that our military personnel strikes solely at military and military-related targets.
И у нас есть факты.
We have facts about who was at the facility that was hit in Sumy. There was another meeting of Ukrainian military leaders with their Western colleagues who were there either as mercenaries or I don't know who. But NATO servicemen are there. Everyone knows that.
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has responded, calling the missile attack on Sumy a horrible thing and a mistake.
I think it was terrible, and I was told they made a mistake, but I think it's a horrible thing. I think the whole war is a horrible thing. I think the war is, for that war to have started, is an abuse of power. This country would have never allowed that war to have started if I were president.
On the diplomatic front, EU foreign ministers have gathered in Luxembourg to discuss the war as the bloc is working on a 17th package of sanctions against Russia, set to be ready for an EU foreign ministers meeting in May.
It is clear that we are working on the 17th package, also shadow fleet and different elements there to put it together for the Foreign Affairs Council in May.
And in yet another overnight assault, a Russian drone strike on the port city of Odessa injured 8 people and damaged homes, a medical facility and a warehouse. In Zaporizhia, a petrol station caught fire following another Russian attack. As the war drags on, the human cost continues to mount with no clear end in sight. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, it's been a chaotic few days for the global economy and for the markets. US President Donald Trump started a trade war over a week ago, escalated with China, called off the rest, and with markets around the world getting closer to where they started off before all the drama, many are wondering what happened. Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and he joins me from Berlin. Lars, what's the word in Europe?
Thanks for having me. Well, I've heard many words depicting Donald Trump, his chaotic trade announcements, the market's behavior. Many of these words I don't think we can mention on TV, but let me tell you that Europe, much like the rest of the world, has gone through some hectic days with huge market swings, with the EU Global Trade Commission holding an emergency meeting to figure out how to counter Trump's actions before it all, of course, got called off. Now, while there's a bit more calm in the market, analysts said no matter that tariffs have now been pushed off, the damage is already done. Let me quote Mohammed El-Arian of Allianz, the German financial and insurance giant. He says markets need Trump to also cancel the 10% in base tariffs that he has left his trading partners with. As for George Savarelos of Deutsche Bank in Frankfurt, he says Trump has shown the world that he moves fast and in totally unpredictable ways. Not a stretch here. After all, Trump was contradicting himself all the time last week. And he says that can only lead to one thing now. Everyone will make the strategic decision to become less dependent on business with the United States, just to be a bit more protected from such irrational moves in future.
And looking ahead at the next 90 days, Lars, what are analysts expecting?
They're not very optimistic in terms of going back to business as usual. As a matter of fact, Mr. El-Arian here from Allianz says that the 90 days push-off will obviously give companies some breathing room. They don't have to rush to save costs and possibly even cut jobs, but that they're caught in limbo. Companies need a long-term strategy in terms of manufacturing, but also what markets to deliver to or what suppliers in which countries to source from. Much of what companies, not only in Germany and the EU, but elsewhere too, much of what they have built up over decades has been shaken to its core. And while nobody knows whether or not tariffs are coming back, what business sectors will be protected or which sectors might be punished especially hard, many can't plan their business going forward. To just take this weekend's back and forth over tech tariffs too, with the US canceling tariffs on cell phones and chips from China, and then on Sunday announcing that they're likely coming back in a month or two. In the end, that's what I heard from many analysts here, this is expected to weigh heavy on the entire European economy. It slows things down and it will end up costing us in terms of GDP growth.
And finally, Lars, what's the long-term outlook? What do you expect to see as the outcome of all this trade trouble?
Well, from what I'm hearing, there's two scenarios. One is the optimistic scenario where the US will actually make some trade deals pretty much at the levels seen before this whole circus blew up. It's not an unrealistic scenario because we do know that Donald Trump is more than anything a showman. He would likely be more than happy to present any deal, even if it's just a rewrite of an old deal. And he would present it as a win, and that's it for him. Trade would then go on likely as before. The other scenario is that Trump will further escalate not only the trade war with China, but that he also can't reach a deal with others, including the EU. And then we're going to see the same tariffs go into effect in 3 months. And that's why some analysts are warning people not to necessarily see last week's lows as the bottom for markets. Markets will be volatile. The whole situation right now is pretty much up in the air. That's pretty much the only thing people really agree on.
All right, Lars, thank you. Lars Holter reporting there from Berlin. Meanwhile, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said on Sunday in an interview with ABC's This Week that smartphones, computers and some other electronics will come under separate tariffs along with semiconductors that may be imposed in a month or so. The U.S. government on 11th April granted exclusions from steep tariffs on products that are imported largely from China, providing a big break to tech firms such as Apple that rely on imported products. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency's notice of tariff codes on Friday excluded from the import taxes featured 20 product categories, including the broad 8,471 code for all computers, laptops, disk drives, and automatic data processing. It also included semiconductor devices, equipment, memory chips, and flat panel displays.
Those products are going to be part of the semiconductor sectoral tariffs, which are coming. So you're going to see this week there'll be a register in the Federal Registry. There'll be a notice put out. That is different types of work. So we're going to do that. We did that in autos. The president's going to do it for pharmaceuticals, and he's going to do it for semiconductors.
Japan's Prime Minister Ishiba Shigeru says he won't be rushed into concluding tariff talks with the United States. Speaking at a lower house committee meeting on Monday, Ishiba spoke about the need to build strong ally-specific ties with Washington, D.C. He said Japan will take a measured approach backed by the most detailed analysis yet as it prepares for upcoming negotiations.
I don't believe in making concessions one after another to simply conclude discussions. I think what is important is to build new ties that only allies can establish. Japan will prepare for the upcoming talks by conducting an analysis more detailed than ever before.
Calling it a national crisis, Ishiba urged both the ruling and opposition blocs to unite. He directed government officers to thoroughly assess their roles in addressing the situation.
We are facing a national crisis. I would like to bring both the ruling and opposition blocs together to face the situation and avoid making it a tool for political conflict.
Still to come on DD India NewsHour. Greece to buy 24 Rafale fighter jets from France. And China's Xi Jinping begins his Southeast Asia tour from Vietnam. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. China's President Xi Jinping has begun his first overseas trip of the year as he seeks to tighten regional trade ties and offset the impact of huge tariffs unleashed by his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump. Xi is in Vietnam, the first stop of his three-nation tour of Southeast Asia that will also take him to Malaysia and Cambodia.
A line of well-wishers stood outside the Vietnamese capital's airport waving Chinese flags as China's Xi Jinping arrived in Hanoi for the start of a tour that Beijing says holds importance for the broader region. China and Vietnam signed dozens of cooperation deals, including on production and supply chains, as well as railway cooperation. Xi's trip to Vietnam, his second in less than 18 months, aims to consolidate relations with a strategic neighbor in order to help offset the impact from a closed United States, the largest single recipient of Chinese goods last year. The Chinese leader called for stronger cooperation with Vietnam in order to inject more stability and positive energy into a chaotic and intertwined world. Xi wrote in a signed article published by a Vietnamese newspaper that trade war and tariff war will produce no winner, and protectionism will lead nowhere. Xi emphasized diplomacy and regional cooperation, saying, "We should properly manage differences and safeguard peace and stability in our region." A Chinese official chimed in, condemning US tariffs as abuse.
The US government has recently abused its tariffs worldwide, going against the trend. The move has not only been widely opposed by relevant countries, but also criticized and opposed by international organizations.
But Donald Trump is doubling down, saying that no country, especially China, would be getting off the hook when it comes to his sweeping tariffs, even though there's a 90-day pause on some of them.
The tariffs will be in place in the not distant future, because as you know, like we did with steel, like we did with automobiles, like we did with aluminum, which are now fully on, we'll be doing that with semiconductors, with chips, and numerous other things. And that'll take place in the very near future.
From Vietnam, Xi will travel to Malaysia and Cambodia from April 15 to 18. He last visited Cambodia and Malaysia 9 and 12 years ago, respectively. With tensions high and markets on the edge, the trade war between the US and China shows no signs of abating, and markets may continue to witness extreme volatility in weeks ahead. The disruption has hit the global markets rather hard. The S&P 500 is down more than 10% since Trump took office, with analysts warning of a potential recession. Bureau Report, DD India.
And joining me is Professor Sachin Chaturvedi. He's an economist and the Director General of the Research and Information System for Developing Countries, a New Delhi-based think tank. Professor, welcome to DD India NewsHour. I have some basic questions to ask of you so that our viewers are able to gain a better understanding of the issues at hand. Now, first up, some say the Trump tariffs will hurt China the most. Others say China would not be unduly worried. Which is true?
The situation is somewhere in between. The tariffs are definitely out to affect the way Chinese have, in a way, participated in the global trading regime, the way they have contributed in terms of their interpretation and their scope and ambit within which they have acted upon managing the tariff systems. And the other, which is much more interesting to watch, is this whole tariff game that has been unleashed. The trouble is that there are advantages that China had been getting of being part of the global trading arrangements. These tariffs would make them, in a way, not really competitive with their products. And that's what going to open a large number of choices for the US consumers.
Okay, so the US has a trade deficit with China. We understand that. Trump wants to change the situation. We understand that too. He imposes tariffs on China. So far, so good. But why target every other country on the map? Why impose tariffs on all and sundry?
See, one thing that we would have to realize is this huge trade deficit of more than $1 trillion that the US has. And there, to isolate one country and undermine the trade deficits that are there due to other trading partners, US has come out with one stick to cover all, and they have imposed restrictions on everybody, including those whom they have additionally charged for currency manipulation, for intellectual property violations, for cyber crimes, etc. This with tariff is largely in terms of those who have contributed maximum. If you look at China, that's only one part of the whole challenge for US. They have also targeted Canada. They have also targeted Mexico. Both the countries have allowed Chinese investment to come in US neighborhood, use these preferential market access that these two countries, wisely Mexico and Canada, enjoy, and then use these two countries to export again Chinese products to US. So what US was getting as Chinese products were not just coming from China, but also being produced by Chinese companies in Vietnam, in Mexico, and in Canada. And the countries that Xi Jinping has chosen is a very clear reflection of creating a sort of network, Vietnam being the single most affected country after China in the Asian region. Malaysia and Cambodia have also been called in by Xi Jinping in this current visit. So you find a sort of effort to form a coalition of countries who would be resistant. And if you recall, just some time back, with French shoring, there was a very interesting paper that IMF did in which they talked about verticalization of trade. And you find that two axes have emerged. one of countries that are trading with the US and the other set of countries that are trading with China.
Right. Now, you're an economist, but I have a political economic question for you, Professor. Politically speaking, is Trump not being short-sighted in levying tariffs on friends and foes alike? Today, even countries that have a difficult relationship with China find themselves on the same side of the divide as China. Now, if good economics is good politics, conversely, is bad economics bad politics?
Not really. If you look at dilemma, data paucity, and also a quick action immediately after taking over this office, President has unleashed a number of such initiatives where he is airing his discontentment with the way US policy regimes have evolved in last couple of years. And his idea is targeting open trade. His idea is identifying those actors who, when US is extending free trade arm and book to them, they are taking advantage of that and still going for a very protectionist approach.
Right.
So these two, Trump says, would not match. So as a result, this is politics that is addressing the domestic constituency of President Trump. But at the same time, it is also bringing in US economy in sharp focus.
And finally, very quickly, if you will, Professor, what can be an off-ramp for dialing down tensions? What sort of a compromise might work, one that will help Trump save face and not make others feel shortchanged or slighted? In other words, who will blink first? And more importantly, what if she does not?
I think there are three choices that China has. One, that they resist, they assert, and they don't come forward for discussion, in which we would see who would be the loser. Second option is to form a coalition, for which they have already made some moves today, and probably over next 3-4 days we would see some concrete results, if at all they have to come pouring in. And third and last is to ask friendly countries to help negotiate and bring them on table. And in that you may see some European countries or even some emerging markets taking a lead and getting the two superpowers together.
Professor Chaturvedi, thank you for breaking it down for our viewers and sharing your thoughts and insights with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
In other news, Greece is boosting its defense with a new deal to buy 16 anti-ship missiles from France. The Greek defense minister and his French counterpart signed the deal for French-built Exocet missiles in Athens. In 2021, Greece and France made a defense deal to buy 3 French frigates and 24 Rafale fighter jets. Greece also plans to buy a 4th Belhara frigate and cruise missiles. These purchases are part of a €25 billion effort to modernize Greece's military by 2036 as it seeks to keep pace with its rival Turkey.
The agreement with France, which I had the honor to negotiate and sign under the order of the Prime Minister, is for us, is one of the foundations of our defense.
You will make. We will ask Naval Group to complete its establishment here in Greece, and that a Naval Group Greece sector is only waiting to be developed.
A second round of nuclear talks between the United States and Iran will be held in Rome. Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani was reported as saying on Monday by the country's main news agency. The White House said U.S. Special Presidential Envoy Steve Witkoff met with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi in Oman last Saturday and had very positive and constructive discussions. U.S. President Donald Trump, who has threatened military action if no deal is reached on halting Iran's nuclear program, told reporters on board Air Force One on Sunday that he met with advisors on Iran and expected a quick decision. In a move signaling renewed ties between France and Morocco, France's Interior Minister visited Rabat for high-level security talks with his Moroccan counterpart. The brief but strategic visit focuses on strengthening cooperation in key areas such as migration, organized crime and drug trafficking. The visit comes on the heels of a diplomatic row between Paris and Rabat following France's recognition of Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara last summer, a turning point in relations after years of strained dialogue, particularly around migration issues. Still to come on DD India NewsHour. An expert take on the arrest of fugitive Indian businessman Mehul Choksi in Belgium. And India pays homage to B.R. Ambedkar, the chief architect of the country's constitution, on his birth anniversary.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Going back to the top story we are tracking here on DD India NewsHour. Acting on India's extradition request, Belgium arrests fugitive businessman Mehul Choksi. Mr. Anil Kumar Trigunai joins us from Bengaluru. He is a former Indian ambassador to Jordan, Libya and Malta. Ambassador, welcome to DD India NewsHour. What did you make of the arrest of Mehul Choksi in Belgium?
Well, I think it's a welcome news. Now, in the last 2 weeks, we have heard some good news with regard to these offenders, or as I call them, as economic terrorists, basically. Right. So in a sense, it is a good news, but I believe that is still going forward. It's going to be a little bit of a fight because he'll have to exhaust all the legal remedies available to him in Belgium. But I believe he has also violated the Belgian law while taking the residence permit there. But as you remember that in March, we had the visit of a very high-powered economic and political delegation from Belgium, led by Her Royal Highness Princess Astrid. During that, of course, when you are going to talk about a greater economic collaboration, then obviously you need to talk about these kind of people who tend to create a major problem between the relations. And I believe that since then there has been a pressure on him, and they have, on the request of the Indian government for extradition of Mehul Choksi to India, have arrested him. Now we'll have to see how it eventually proceeds. Right. We do have an extradition treaty which was signed in, I think, 2020, and that will be followed through eventually. Although this fellow has been a very smart guy, he and his nephew, Narendra Modi, in fact, both of them have been working on how to evade the process of the law. Firstly, they said their passport has been cancelled wrongly, so they can't travel to India. Imagine, he has taken citizenship of Barbuda, then he went to Dominica, and now he is sitting in Belgium. And he's been arrested from Antwerp, as you know, is the diamond capital of the world in a way. Yes.
From a diplomatic or bilateral perspective, Ambassador, when can one expect Choksi to be brought back to India? In other words, what are the next steps in its extradition to India?
Well, I think that India has already filed, which has been admitted by the Belgian authorities, that the Indian request, and we already have arrest warrants, and by the court letter rogatories have all been complied with it and have been sent. And I think that when the delegation was in India, this was at the highest level impressed upon them to send them back to India. So I'm sure that the government there will be taking all the recourse, but as you also know that he's been provided the legal assistance to defend himself, and so they'll have to exhaust this whole process. of going forward, like it happened in the case of Tahir Rana in the United States.
Indeed.
But since it's an economic offense, an established case, and the PNP scam is very well known to everyone, the facts are there, and even his property, some of it have been, confiscated towards that end. So I believe that might be faster than the other terror cases. I also feel that it is important that India should now insist on including a provision or a clause in all the free trade agreements that we sign with countries that in such kind of economic offenses, it should be possible to send them back immediately without going through the extradition process, which is a very lengthy and detailed process and causes the problem.
Ambassador Trigunath, you referred to Tahir Rana's extradition to India. So first Rana and now Choksi. What's the message the Indian government is sending out? That it means business?
Well, Indian government is sending out the message that if you run away from here, you're not safe anywhere. You will get you back and put you in front of the Indian law, and the law will take its own course. That is very simple. And the government is very committed. In fact, it's in the nature of these kind of deals and the agreements. I have negotiated several extradition agreements. I tell you, it is as bad as executing them to negotiate any extradition treaty. Sometimes you need to spend years before you can conclude a treaty with a country. And therefore, to execute it also, there are a lot of loopholes that come about. And the countries also have their geopolitical reasons. We have not been able to get anybody from the West for a very, very long time.
Right.
And now the Tahir Rana have virtually opened the gates. And so I hope we will be able to get all the major economic offenders, especially two of them are still in the UK. And Mehul Choksi, if we are able to get him back quickly, I think that will send a clear message to the such people and who complicity with the banks and all that. I mean, it can't happen without the complicity of the banks.
Indeed.
As simple as that.
And since you referred to the UK, what about other economic offenders who are wanted in India? For instance, Nirav Modi and Vijay Mallya are in the UK. What can India do to bring them back to face justice?
Well, India has been doing everything that it can from sitting here. We have provided all the evidence.
Okay.
But in the UK, as you know, that on flimsiest of grounds, and the UK, I mean, I would have no hesitation in saying, has been virtually a haven for these kind of people coming from all over. And they continue to enjoy the blissful living in the country. I mean, it was called London Grant at one time. All the Russian oligarchs own the properties, large number of Arabs and Nigerians, many of them who have stolen the wealth from their countries are living in the UK. I mean, so this is something in the nature of that place, although it's supposed to be the birthplace of the modern law, but at the same time, under that, there are so many loopholes that allow these people to continue to evade facing the Indian law.
I'm afraid that's all we have time for. I will have to leave it at that. Ambassador Trigunath, thank you for joining us and sharing your thoughts with our viewers.
Thank you, Ramesh. So good to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Moving on, Prime Minister Modi inaugurated a series of infrastructure projects in Haryana's Hisar. He also flagged off the first ever commercial flight from Hisar to the holy city of Ayodhya in Uttar Pradesh.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched multiple projects in Haryana's Hisar as he paid tributes to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar on his birth anniversary. PM Modi said that for the past 11 years, Baba Saheb's life, his struggles and timeless message have been the cornerstone of the government's journey. The PM laid the foundation stone of the new terminal building of the Maharaja Agrasen Airport in Hisar. He also flagged off the maiden commercial flight from Hisar to the holy city of Ayodhya in Uttar Pradesh. Highlighting that the airport marked a significant milestone in Haryana's development journey, the PM said that it would generate employment and boost connectivity.
जितने नए जहाज आएंगे, उतनी ही ज्यादा नौकरियां पायलट के रूप में हो, एयर होस्टेस के रूप में हो, सैकड़ों नई सेवाएं भी होती हैं एक जगह हवाई जहाज चलता है तब। ग्राउंड स्टाफ होता है, न जाने कितने काम होता है। ऐसी अनेक सेवाओं के लिए नौजवानों को रोजगार के अवसर मिलेंगे। इतना ही नहीं, हवाई जहाज के मेंटेनेंस से जुड़ा एक बड़ा सेक्टर भी अनगिनत रोजगार बनाएगा। हिसार का ये एयरपोर्ट भी हरियाणा के नौजवानों के सपनों को नई ऊंचाई देगा।
He also underlined the success of the centre's regional airport development scheme called UDAN, saying that before 2014, India had just 74 airports, while today the number has crossed 150. The PM also inaugurated several development projects, including the 800 megawatt modern thermal power unit at the Deen Bandhu Chotu Ram Thermal and the Rewani bypass project under the Bharatmala Pariyojana. Bureau Report, DD, India.
The nation paid homage to B.R. Ambedkar, the chief architect of the Indian Constitution, on his birth anniversary on Monday. President Draupadi Murmu, Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla paid floral tributes at the Ambedkar statue at Parliament House. Tributes were also paid to Dr. Ambedkar in the Central Hall of Parliament. Lawmakers from both houses of Parliament paid homage to the architect of the Indian Constitution. They remembered his struggle for economic and social rights of women and the deprived classes. B.R. Ambedkar donned many hats. He was a social reformer, an economist and a politician who dedicated his life for the people. Baba Sahib, as he was affectionately known as, was awarded India's highest civilian honour, the Bharat Ratna, posthumously in 1990. Sujata Lochab has more.
Today we commemorate Ambedkar Jayanti, honouring the legacy of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, a pivotal figure in India's history and the principal architect of the Indian Constitution. Born on April 14, 1891, in Bihu, Madhya Pradesh, Ambedkar faced caste-based discrimination from an early age. Despite these challenges, he excelled academically. Ambedkar attended the government school in Mumbai and later pursued higher education at Columbia University in the United States, where he earned his PhD. His academic achievements laid the foundation for his future endeavours in law and social reform. Ambedkar's career was marked by his relentless fight against caste discrimination. He formed the Labour Party and served as the chairman of the Constitution Committee, playing a crucial role in drafting the Indian Constitution, which emphasized fundamental rights and minority protections. Ambedkar famously described Article 32 as the heart and soul of the Constitution, ensuring that citizens could seek justice in the Supreme Court. His vision extended beyond politics. He advocated for the elimination of untouchability and the caste system, believing that true progress could only be achieved through social justice. This laid the groundwork for a more equitable India, allowing citizens to pursue their dreams without the shackles of discrimination. In 1956, Ambedkar embraced Buddhism, symbolizing his rejection of the caste system and his commitment to equality and fraternity. Posthumously awarded the Bharat Ratna in 1990, Dr. Ambedkar's teachings on democracy and human rights continue to inspire millions today. Sujata Lochab for DD India.
South Korea's ousted President Yoon Suk-yeol has denied insurrection charges as the impeached former leader appeared in court for the opening of his criminal trial for declaring martial law. Yoon sought to impose military rule when he ordered the suspension of political activity and the censorship of media on 3rd December. The decree lasted just 6 hours as it was voted down by opposition lawmakers. He was removed by the Constitutional Court from office earlier this month for violating constitutional powers by taking actions that were labelled a serious challenge to democracy. After the hearing, Yoon's lawyer said they will argue the legality of martial law for the remainder of the trial.
Why the president had to declare emergency martial law, which is his constitutional authority. If the legality of the emergency martial law is recognized, as the prosecutors are now seeing this as insurrection, we believe it can be proven that this doesn't have to be regarded as a crime in the first place.
Daniel Noboa wins Ecuador's presidential election. The country's election authority declared him the winner after the 37-year-old leader defeated his leftist rival by a larger than expected margin. Noboa's supporters celebrated in Quito's streets. With 90% of votes counted, the National Election Council announced that Noboa had an unassailable lead over his charismatic leftist rival Luisa Gonzalez. Noboa said that there was no doubt about his victory as he thanked his supporters. He pledged to continue efforts to combat drug gangs and revive the struggling economy.
El Ecuador está cambiando.
Ecuador is changing. Ecuador has already chosen a different path, and with that path, our children will live better than we did. It will ensure that future generations have a more dignified life, a more just life, a more transparent life, a more transparent government, more transparent institutions, and progress, planning, and projection, which unfortunately in past years some were unable to achieve, and even chose to leave this country to seek their fortune elsewhere.
And still to come on DD India NewsHour. Katy Perry, Jeff Bezos' fiancée Lauren Sanchez, 4 others take all-women's space journey. And the 2026 Winter Olympics torch is unveiled.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Global stock markets surged on Monday as concerns over Trump's trade war were eased by tariff exemptions on key electronic products such as smartphones, laptops and semiconductors. But European indices jumped around 2% in midday deals after last week's roller coaster for equities as the United States and China exchanged tit-for-tat levies. That tracked gains in Asia, with tech firms helping push Hong Kong up more than 2%, while Tokyo and Shanghai also closed higher. Meanwhile, uncertainty over U.S. trade policy weighed on the dollar, which extended losses against major global currencies. The euro reached a 3-year high, while the Swiss franc climbed to its strongest level in a decade. This decline in the dollar helped gold hit a fresh record high. Moving on, U.S. pop star Katy Perry and 5 other women were launched to the edge of space in a fully automated rocket owned by billionaire Jeff Bezos. The all-woman team was lofted more than 100 kilometers above the Earth's surface in a vessel from Blue Origin, the space company owned by Bezos. The 5 other women, including Bezos' fiancée Lauren Sanchez, joined the flight. After the rocket reached the edge of space, the crew capsule detached mid-flight and returned to the ground, slowed by parachutes and a retro rocket. Monday's mission marked the first all-woman space crew since Russian cosmonaut Valentina Tereshkova's historic solo flight way back in 1963. All right, now take a look at what else is making news around the world. The Golconda Blue, a 23.24 carat fancy vivid blue diamond, will be the star of the auction house's magnificent jewels sale in May. Earlier, it was on display at Christie's in New York City. Mined over 300 years ago in India, the gem is expected to fetch $35 to $50 million. The sale will happen in Geneva, Switzerland on 14th May. Researchers near France's Nancy are working on extracting lithium from European mineral deposits to reduce its dependence on imports. In the plant, gravity is used to separate minerals, ultimately producing finely milled lithium powder. Managed by the University of Lorraine and CNRS, the Steval plant, unique in Europe, tests processing methods on a semi-industrial scale. A stunning exhibition titled Hayret Makami and the Mode of Awe has opened at the Istanbul Palace Collections Museum, showcasing 170 traditional Turkish and Islamic artworks by 7 artists. Featuring intricate illumination, marbling, miniatures, tile work and book binding, the display celebrates the rich heritage of these art forms. Rongali Bihu, also known as Bohag Bihu, one of Assam's most vibrant and cherished festivals, starts today. The festival marks the Assamese New Year and the onset of the spring season. Rongali Bihu marks the beginning of the agricultural season in Assam, a time when farmers prepare the field for sowing. Subina Roy has more.
Rongali Bihu. This is the festival of the change that the nature brings in with the advent of the spring.
The festival of spring and the ushering of Assamese New Year is given a grand welcome in the form of Rongali Bihu. Out of the 3 primary Bihus in Assam, which are mainly associated with different agricultural cycles of paddy, Rongali Bihu represents the sowing season of the crops. The formal beginning of Rongali Bihu starts with Goru Bihu, where livestock are taken to river sources and given bath with symbolic herbs such as Ma Halodhi, Vibdigholoti, Makhioti, and offered gods and brinjals. This is believed to protect the animals from diseases. The second day is Manu Bihu, which involves the tradition of seeking blessings from elders and ancestors by presenting the ceremonial gamusa, cloth, a symbol of Assamese pride. The third day is Gohai Bihu with prayers in Namghor. The remaining days include Tator Bihu, Nangolor Bihu, and Tiori Bihu, where people visit local fairs, and finally Sera Bihu or Bohagi Bidai, where people finally wrap up the Bihu celebrations. Rongali Bihu presents the rich culture of Assam. It is the time when different kinds of dances or bihus such as Mukoli Bihu, Husori Bihu, Jang Bihu are performed with the help of traditional musical instruments, showcasing the richness in culture.
With dedicated Bruga team, Subina Roy, TD India.
And in sports news, the torches that will carry the Olympic flame for the 2026 Winter Games and Paralympics were unveiled in a dual event in Milan and Osaka on Monday. Made from recycled aluminium, the torches have been styled in 2 different versions, blue-colored for the Olympics and bronze for the Paralympics. Former cross-country skier Stefania and Paralympic fencing star Bebe Vio unveiled the torches in a theatre in Milan. Milan and the town of Cortina d'Ampezzo are the main hosts of the Games, which will run from 6th to the 22nd of February in 2026. India wrapped up their campaign at the Archery World Cup in the United States with 4 medals, including a silver and a bronze from Dheeraj Bommadevara in the men's individual recurve event. The Indian men's recurve team, featuring Olympians Dheeraj Bommadevara, Tarundeep Rai and Atanu Das, went down 1-5 to China in the final in Auburndale City. Later in the day, Bommadevara beat Andres Temino of Spain 6-4 to win the bronze medal. Earlier, Rishabh Yadav and Jyothi Vennam secured the gold, while Rishabh, Abhishek Verma and Ojas Deotale won a bronze in the men's compound team event. India finished 4th on the medals tally. Mexico topped the standings with 6 medals. India's Manika Batra and Srija Akola made a winning start to their table tennis World Cup campaign in Macau on Monday. Drawn in Group 16 of the women's singles, Batra had a comfortable start as she beat Guiret Melis of France 4-0 in just 18 minutes. Batra was dominating throughout, winning the match in straight games. Meanwhile, Akola got the better of Konstantina Sai Hodgios 3-1 in the women's singles Group 9. Manika and Srija are the only 2 Indian women in the tournament. No Indian male paddler has qualified. Hockey India has announced a 26-member women's squad for the upcoming tour of Australia, scheduled to take place from the 26th of April. The 5-match series will see India take on Australia A in the first 2 games, followed by 3 matches against the senior Australian team. The squad will be led by dynamic midfielder Salima Tete, with experienced forward Navneet Kaur serving as the vice-captain. Seasoned goalkeeper Savita and young talent Bichu Devi Kharibam will share responsibilities between the posts. Additionally, 5 new players have earned a call-up to the senior team. And that's all for this edition of DD India NewsHour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can get the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code now on your screen to download it. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India NewsHour.